What is up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Bonnie and this is Happy Space Create. I have got a sew along video for you today. So if you want to see what I'm making, do follow along at home. Grab a cup of tea. Let's get sewing. So, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. I have got a sew along for you today. So if you are wondering what we're planning on making, I am going to be making the McCall's 8029. This is a beautiful, lightweight kind of transitional jacket. It's actually a shawl slash poncho, so it doesn't have any sleeves or any fastenings. It is simply a sort of rectangular shape, and then it has a lovely belt to tie it through the middle. So it is perfect for springtime, putting on over a long sleeve t-shirt if you're just wanting to keep that chill off, which is exactly why I'm going to be making it right now, because this is the perfect season to make it in. This pattern was kindly gifted to me by Minerva, so I am part of their brand ambassador program, and they reached out and asked if we would all like to be gifted a McCall's pattern for March, and I chose this one. So I think this is a fantastic, like I said, transitional pattern. I can see myself wearing this, you know, throughout summer, just like a light jacket to take with you, because in England you just never know when the weather's gonna turn, do you really? So yeah, I'm gonna be sewing this one up, and I thought you might like to come along for the ride to see how it goes. So I'll be making it out of this beautiful wool blend fabric. Now this is from Pound Fabrics. I have got 3 meters of this, and it is a wool polyester blend, I believe. It's actually exactly like the one that is featured in the pattern picture. So it is beige with a little white fleck in it, which I think gives it a little bit of a detail as well. So, shall we get started? I'm excited. So I have actually already pre-cut my pattern. I did this off camera because I felt like it was really time consuming. Now, the reason that I have cut the pattern directly is because I am cutting the largest size, which is a medium, on this particular sizing category. So as you can see, I've cut out the excess tissue paper, but I haven't actually lost any of the sizes. So I've still got the extra small, the small, and then the medium here. So if I do want to make it again and I want to make it smaller, I can just trace off the smaller size, and obviously if I wanted to make a bigger one, I would have to buy the bigger version of the pattern. So that is the reason why you will see me cutting exactly the pattern. If you do want to trace off your pattern at home, I do recommend that as well, so that you can make them in alternate sizes, but that's the reason why I've cut my pattern directly. So let's lay out our fabric and cut out the pieces that we need. I am going to be making version C. Now this does have a hood. I am hoping that I have enough fabric for making the full version, which is the shawl, the belt, and then the hood. I've never made a hood before, so fingers crossed that this goes okay, because I'm a bit nervous. But how hard can it be? It comes with instructions, right? So yeah, let's get cutting our fabric out, and then I will join you back at the sewing machine. So as you can see, I've laid out my fabric now. So I do have the selve edge meeting the selve edge just down here, and then your length of fabric will run vertically. So the end that frays will be at the bottom here. I do have 3 meters of fabric, so I should have more than enough to make version C. So that will use all of the pattern pieces. If you are making a different version at home, do just double check on the instructions which pattern pieces you do need. They are all numbered, so it does make it nice and easy for you. But I'm going to lay out my pattern pieces now, and you can just watch as I cut out, and then I will meet you back at the sewing machine to get started. So as you can see, I've laid out most of my pattern pieces now. Unfortunately, my spare room is not big enough to do it all in one go, so I've just piled up the rest of the fabric towards the end, and I'll do the second half in a moment. But yeah, I've laid out most of my pattern pieces. Do check the numbers on the pattern piece, depending on what version you are making, because so you can see that it says what part the pattern piece is and then which version you're intending to make. So I'm making version C, so this pattern piece says A and B, so I don't need this piece for cutting out. So if you are new to cutting out big 4 patterns, that is how they tell you which pieces you need to cut out. So everything is nicely labelled for you. So yeah, I am cutting out all of the pieces apart from this one because I'm doing a hood instead of a collar. So yeah, I'll be cutting out now, so feel free to watch. I will speed this up to make it a bit more interesting for you. So I now have all of my pattern pieces cut out. So I just had enough fabric, which is good because I didn't realise that you needed to cut 4 of the hood, so I had to use that pattern piece twice. Luckily I had just enough. It does say that I also need some interfacing as well, so I need some interfacing for the front facing and also the neck facing. It doesn't say anywhere in the instructions the type of interfacing to use. So I have got some fusible fleece. I feel like this has got a good amount of movement in it still, but obviously will add warmth to the jacket also. So I think I'm going to use this really fine fusible fleece, but I haven't got enough of it. So I'm going to nip to the haberdashery and get some more, and then cut that out. So I will have to join you back here in a moment. So I have now interfaced the pieces. I didn't manage to get any at the haberdashery, but I ordered some on Amazon, so it did come the next day. So it is now the next day. So as you can see, I've got some more of that fusible fleece and I have interfaced it with that, and then also on all of my pieces I have just overlocked all of the edges. Now, depending on your type of material, you might not have to do this because some wool type fabrics do not fray, but mine is a particularly frayy kind of fabric, so I just went through all of the pattern pieces and overlocked them just before I started sewing because I didn't want, you know, it to lose any shape or anything like that. So moving on to the next step, the instructions call for making the buttonholes for the belt to go through. These are quite large according to the pattern pieces, and my buttonhole piece does not go that big, so the buttonhole is about that big. So what I decided to do was, like I said, my fabric is a bit loose knit, so I just put a little patch of interfacing over each marking where the buttonhole is. I just wanted it to have a little bit more structure because the outfit where the belt is, it's going to have quite a lot of pressure on it most of the time where you keep tying it up. The instructions don't actually call for this step, but I feel like that is a really important part to do just for longevity. So with the interfacing, you can use a small little strip. I've actually used this edge taping, which I use for like collars and stuff. So I've just got a little bit of that and I just did 2 little strips. So yeah, so that is what I'm going to be doing now. Okay, so those buttonholes are all done. It doesn't say anything about cutting them open or anything, so I'm just going to leave them for now. I'm assuming they obviously get cut open at some stage, but it doesn't say to do that yet, so I'll leave it. Now we're going to stitch the back together at the centre, and then we're also going to then pin this interfacing neck facing in, so I will try to record that as I go along. So I've now completed the centre back. You can see it just here. So I have sewn the 2 back sides together, and I thought that piece was going on next, which is the back facing, but I've just read the instructions again and I now need to do the hood. So I've never made a hood before, so I've got 2 pieces here and then I've got another 2 as well. I'm assuming that is going to be the lining side of it. So I'm going to read the instructions really carefully because, like I said, I've never done this before. But yeah, so now it's on to the hood section. So let's sew this together and see how that goes. I was using a little nifty tool earlier that I just wanted to talk to you about. So you might have seen a second ago that I was using this little measuring tool. Now, if I pop this closely to the camera, you can see that it has lots of little measurements on it. Now, this is actually a sewing gauge, and this is from Hemline. I just got this on Amazon, and it's a really good way of measuring your seam allowances, or if you want to make sure that a button is a certain distance apart, but it literally has like all the different measurements that you could possibly need. So yeah, so it's a really handy tool, and it's small as well, so it's really handy just to have around. So if you are looking for that, I will link it in the description box below. Okay, so far I haven't done a huge amount, but what I have done has been relatively easy. So I now have 1/2 of a hood. Let me just put this on, see how cute it looks. 1 second. I mean, am I even going to wear the hood? But looks cute. Love it. So yeah, so that is the inside of the hood. I am going to attach this to the centre back, and then I believe we're going to start adding the facings onto the inside. I think I've only got like 5 steps left. The instructions are really sparse. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be relatively straightforward. Just make sure that you match any notches and that you have transferred the notches from your pattern pieces to your actual fabric, because I feel like it's really easy to get things off center, and it's such a focal point of the piece that you want to make sure that everything's in the center. So do make sure that you match your notches, and I'm just going to attach it around this neckline now. So yeah, let's get going. I'm only going to be attaching it from this inner circle, I believe, not from this part. Okay, this is where the instructions start to get a little bit dicey. So I've got a hood section, cool. I have sewn the hood together, cool. Now I have got some kind of weird instructions about pinning half the hood to the back and half the hood to the front. Not really sure how that's going to go, but I'm going to play about with the pattern pieces and see if I can figure out where it is. You know what these instructions are like. You either get it or you don't. The pictures are, I mean, doesn't really give me much to go on. So yeah, I will probably take an hour to figure this out. So you literally get the tiniest little drawing, and you know, just to get like a little circle, you can't even see the full image, and then it just doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. So I'm playing around with the different pattern pieces, but my god, I don't know which is the shoulder. Like, it says pin to front at shoulders, but the pattern pieces doesn't even, it doesn't label which end is the shoulders or anything. So overall, not off to a very good start here, to be honest, but yeah. Okay, I think I figured it out. So here's the back, there's the hood. So I've only basted it to this part, so this part here is unattached. So this is the part I was struggling with. So what you actually need to do is bring that part in, and then this is your front piece. So your front piece has the little diagonal cut down the side, so that is the bottom. That's the bottom. And then this is the top. And then with the hood folded in, this part should now meet. And then there is my little dot that matches where that hood comes. So I think I finally figured it out. And now if I stitch across here, that is going to become like the collar. So yeah, that is it. That's how it goes. But the instructions didn't do a very good job of explaining that. So hopefully I've done a good job of explaining that, because it took me ages. So fingers crossed that is the correct way, but we shall see. Let's sew it together and see what it looks like. Wow. So words cannot express how confusing that was. So basically you have to just fold the hood halfway in and then start attaching this piece from here. I basically couldn't figure out why it was about 6 inches longer on the end here, and then I was like, oh, okay, fold it in. So they didn't really explain that very well in the instructions, but hopefully I have explained it well enough. So now you have got the sort of like hood attached at the white dot, so that's where the little small dot, that's where your seam goes for the hood. I hope I've explained that well. And then you basically attach this part all the way across. So like I said, this doesn't have any like actual sleeve holes, it's like a poncho. So now the front part folds over and you should have something looking a bit like this. So now what we need to do is do the facings. So we're going to do the hood and the front facings again, I believe, and then sew this on so it's like a thicker kind of collar. And then the belt, I believe. I hope I have explained it well, but these seams are obviously going to be hidden by the other part of the hood. So I'm going to give everything a good press now. And hopefully the next step will be, I feel like I've done it once now, so I kind of know how that's going to go. But who knows? You never know, do you really? So I've run out of time sewing now. I've got a Zumba class in about 10 minutes and I need to get ready. And my other half is recording next door, so I don't want my sewing machine to be picked up on his speakers. So I'm going to pick this up again tomorrow or maybe the next day, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Sorry I had to cut you all off yesterday. It was the evening and my other half needed to do some recording, and obviously my sewing machine's quite noisy. So I had to stop sewing and give him his fair use of the house. But yes, it's the next day and I'm back, and you can see in the background, this is what I'm at the moment. So I've got like sort of like a nice waterfall kind of jacket. That is kind of all the outer part. Now I need to do the inner facings and things like that. So I'm going to do the front facings here and then the back neck facing, and I'm going to attach the other side of the hood. This is where I think it's going to get a little bit complicated, because I need to sew them right sides together and then turn it all in. Hopefully it should be fairly easy, but I'm finding it difficult where it is all like one big piece, like where there's no sort of like sleeves or anything like that. It's basically just one massive piece, so it is quite hard to match all the notches and pin it all together. So although the lines of the pattern's really simple, it's a massive project to work with. So this is the inner part of my hood. So this is actually going to be the lining of the hood, and then this is my neck facing. Now I have lined this with the fusible fleece as well. I'm not quite sure about this yet. I'm not sure if it's too bulky, but I'm going to sew it in and just see how it sits, because it still has quite a good amount of fluidity to it. I would like it to have that fusible fleece because I feel like it gives it warmth and like a stiffness, but I'm not sure if it's going to work on the neck facing. So I'm going to make it, and then if all goes wrong, I can probably just maybe peel it off. We'll wait and see, but you know, it's probably not going to be that dramatic, but it might just be a bit stiff. So yeah, so that is the lining of the hood. Now I need to sew the front facings again. So this needs to be attached to the hood like last time. So if that's the back, you basically need to fold that part in, and then you need to attach the front facing to this part, so the little circle connects at the seam. That's how the instructions should say it, basically. So yes, I'm going to sew the front facings to this part now, both sides, and then hopefully it will just be a nice easy stitch all the way around to secure it in place. So I've got it all together. Now the instructions do say to pin the facings wrong sides to wrong sides, meaning that you will have raw edges all along. Now I'm not going to do that because I have overlocked the edges of all of my pieces. Now my fabric does fray, so I can't do that as an option because it will just eventually all unravel. So I am going to pin my facings right sides together. I'm going to pin my facings right sides to right sides and sew along the two. So I've got wrong side, so these are right sides together now. And I'm going to just sew along the raw edges, and then hopefully if I don't sew the bottoms, because there isn't a bottom to it, I should be able to just turn it all inside out, and then I might do some stitch in the ditch along some of the seams to sort of like hold it all in place, but let's cross that bridge when we get there. I have just pinned it right sides together at the moment, and I'm going to pin all the way around the outer edges of those facings and then turn it all back in. Let's go against the grain and try that out. So that's pretty much where the instructions end. Now all that is left is the belt to make. But before I do that, I just want to show you what I did. So I actually sewed it said originally to do the wrong sides together and just edge stitch this, but I did right sides together and then turned it through. So as you can see, it left me with a lovely little point, and now the facings are inside, which is obviously, like, ideally for me the best outcome. So yeah, that's what I've done, but because I've done that, there's a couple more steps that I want to do. Now, obviously, this isn't actually in the instructions, and it made me realise that in my early days of sewing, I would never have dreamed of like straying away from the instructions, but it just has gone to show me how far I've come in my sewing, in the fact that I've been like, that's not going to work for me, I'm going to try something different. So just to give this a little bit more of a professional finish, I could leave this here. The seams all look lovely now, and I could just leave it there and do the belt. But what I want to do is I'm going to just go back in and trim the seam allowances down, like the bulk in the seams. So I've understitched, and I think in the last video you would have seen me getting some of the bulk out of the seams, and now I have just given everything a really good press basically, and I'm going to edge stitch all along, or top stitch. I'm going to top stitch all along because I have a little hem here that I just need to fold over and sew. So I have been pressing all those seams, and I'm going to do like a really narrow hem just to hide the underlocking stitch. But my god, there is so many pins, I'm probably going to tread on them for weeks, and I'm so tired now. My neck is aching so bad because I've just been pressing, like, because the wool is quite thick, like it just needs to be like pressed, and like my neck is aching, but I am so close to finishing that do you ever get to the point where you're like, just man up, because I'm so close now that I just want to get it finished, ready to wear. So I'm gonna persevere, but ideally I would love to stop now. When that point where your sewing is no longer enjoyable, that's the time to stop. But I am final hurdles, just got to do this hem and make a belt, and then I'm good to go. But I've actually loved this project. This has been really quite easy, apart from that little shoulder part that I like got confused on. Generally this whole pattern is really straightforward. I love that it actually hasn't really got too many different parts to attach. It's basically just one big bit of fabric, and I think the effect is going to be really effective. The effect is going to be effective. So yeah, just follow along as I do this last part of top stitching, and then I will open up those buttonholes with a little seam ripper and make the belt.